40s. And Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a SNCC organizer in her community, said all 40-odd of us did not ride all night for 5 folks to sit down. We's all tired, and we's all want to sit down. And so they did not accept that compromise. Well, Alabama people, did you want to
Let me ask you this. Did that have something to do with the power of the Southern Democratic Party? Did the power of the Southern Democratic Party play a role in LBJ's decision to not?
Oh yes. Oh yes. You mean you're talking about the regulars?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes. That was Hubert Humphrey was mainly the negotiator for that. President Johnson, he would take care of this, and that's what they came up with. And the white people, some of the white people, and the black men of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party accepted the compromise. Aaron Henry, and it was the black women, Amy,
Victoria Gray Adams,
Victoria, just passed Professor Hart, Fannie Lou. It was the black women who said, oh no, all of us are tired. And I want to get into, but you have to study psychology and understanding the movement, or any movement. In this need to be a token, we have to study male chauvinism was the term we used, sexism, because there were black men, and the white, Elder K. Lowenstein, the white northerners who were working, really thought that was some kind of victory. You know, after they traveled all the way from Jacksonville, all over rural Mississippi, on a bus to Atlantic City, New Jersey, and that we ought to call it a victory for 5 folks to sit down. Oh, here comes out. Here you go, ain't she sharp? Wonderful. Do you want me to go to Black Power and stop? Yes. And then I'll
I think go ahead. Can I?
yes, go ahead.
Dr. Patton, I think that you talked about SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and for the benefit of some of the younger people here, some of these, you're talking about the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party and the efforts that black people made to become a regular part of the political process. Some people may think that that was an adult-led movement, but could you talk about how old people were in SNCC and how you became involved in SNCC?
Well, first of all, the first tenet was not to trust anybody over 30. And that's what we used to say. So you can see the age of the SNCC cadre. We were young. Some of us were as young as 16, the forced out high school kids. And I think the oldest probably was, well, Foreman was the oldest, but he had a juvenile lifestyle and mentality, and so we trusted him. But we were between the ages of 19 to 23. That was the median age. But I want to get to Alabama and then hush my mouth and let Della talk. I don't hear you. We told SNCC, Tuskegee students in the main, some Alabama State students. I have a letter from Figures, by the way. He was student body president when I was student body president, Thomas, Judge Figures. And Alabama State, of course, was in a very tough position, being a state school, dependent upon the state, had gone through a whole lot in '61 with the sit-ins down at the courthouse, a whole lot in '55, But it always played a very important role. The Women's Political Council, mainly Alabama State faculty women, Dr. King was hid out in the home of President's home when President Trenum was here, H Council. And that he hid out there. Interesting thing about Alabama State, Dr. Trenum had a payphone booth in the house. Payphone booth, where visitors could go in there and talk and close the booth and talk in private, thinking, I don't know if they were conscious of wiretapping or whatever, but some kind of privacy and safety. Tuskegee students, when we came up here, Alabama State was having a fight. By this time, Dr. Watkins is president, because they wanted to participate as organizers for the Selma to Montgomery March. And one of the key students I remember was, of course, Timothy Mays, and God bless his heart, Donna Smith, she's now in Detroit, Figures in his own way, and some other students. They were having Douglas McCann's, and they had this huge protest rally in front of the president's house, President Levi Watkins. And they were about to hang him in effigy. And I remember wading through that crowd, standing on the porch, and saying, you've got to understand, Alabama State is a state institution, Tuskegee is a private, with some state connections, which was a maneuver that Adams did at its founding. But we're private, we have our own board. Alabama State is under the state board. Dr. Watkins is not the enemy. We need a two-pronged strategy. I never forget I'm almost quoting myself verbatim. What we do in the streets will help Dr. Watkins do leverage in the suites. And let's not do this. Let's go discuss how we're going to work together and how we're going to do work with the march. And it was a sizable number of Alabama State students who did participate. And what happened when we had the march that did not turn around, okay, that was after Bloody Sunday, that was after Tuesday, what they call Turnaround Tuesday, then we marched because we had agreed, see, SNCC kids believed in principle. And we had met with Dr. King, I was a part of those meetings, Foreman, Reverend Shuttlesworth had come back down, and all of the pilots. We met at A.G. Gaston Motel. And we had agreed as a collective that we were going to kick off that Tuesday after Bloody Sunday. And Tuskegee students, with help with Alabama State students, were to organize Montgomery, Macon County, and Bullitt County. We had the east part of the Black Belt to bring, to Montgomery. And then the Black Belt, the west side, they were all to organize through Selma. And Judge Johnson, and so we had planned to do that. We had collected money for our buses and all of that, and we were going to come here 10,000 strong. And then Judge Frank Johnson issued an injunction to Tuskegee students saying that we could not march. Well, that was just a good piece of paper. Who cared about whatever that was? And I'm trying to put things in context without denigrating, but as historians we need to know the total complexity of what was happening. And so we marched anyhow. Alabama State students, joined us. They beat us. There were several times Alabama State students got beat afterwards too, because y'all kept it up. When we went back to Tuskegee, Alabama State students kept it up. This is all prior to the big march. This is between Turnaround Tuesday and March 25th. And when we went back to Tuskegee, Alabama State students were relentless. A cadre of Tuskegee students would come. It was Alabama State students who were in the numbers. And when you see the horses being stampeded, those were Alabama State students. And I know some have since passed. When we stayed overnight, I'm going to finally get to Black Power, because that's the end, if I'm not taking too long. When we stayed overnight, we marched. And then they said that something about a permit. Well, we didn't care anything about a permit. And so we marched in. And we ended up at the Capitol, and we decided we were going to stay all night. They were arresting us, mainly Tuskegee students. They were arresting us. If you stood on city property, you were being arrested. If you stood on state property, you were arrested by the state troopers. I mean, it was just a mess. And about 3:30 in the morning, we went to Dexter Avenue. Miraculously, the door was open. And we slept on the pews and so forth and so on. And miraculously, about 6 in the morning, the water was cut off, the heat was cut off, everything. So there we are, Tuskegee students, trapped in the church, state troopers and the city police surrounding the church. And here came the students led by Thomas Figures, Alabama State, who came and got in between the police and the students in Tuskegee, in the church. And that was how we got out. Now there was one SNCC woman named Annie Girl Avery from Birmingham, because she was not inside the church. She was with SNCC. And when we got off, came on the porch from the church, we saw Annie Pearl snatch a billy club out of a policeman's hand and said, "Now what you gonna do?" And she had a lower voice than I do. And that policeman was just, he was shocked. And she refused to give it back. She just kept it. And also you got ASU students. And so I guess the police said, we better leave these Negroes alone. These are some different kind of Negroes. And so we were able to come on out of there and get back on the bus and go back to Tuskegee. And then Alabama State kept it up until March 25th, when we all in mass. Now, if I can connect the dots, we've been through MFDP, which is a 64. We told Foreman and the SNCC leaders, we're not having these white folks in Alabama, period. Period. We've had the Montgomery bus boycott. We know how to organize. We've had the Alabama Christian movement from Birmingham, Lowndes County, Selma. We had Miss Amelia Boynton. We had the infrastructure. We know how to type. We got Tuskegee Institute. We have mimeographing machines. We know how to make leaflets. So we don't need any kind of expertise. We have it all right here. And we got the bodies. The youthful bodies, Alabama State and Tuskegee. And it was a big mess. The white people had a heart attack. And they sent a cadre over here. And because I was student body president and direct action of tile, we rode from Tuskegee through the Black Belt. And now this is after March 65. It's planting season has passed. We're now talking about somewhere around June, and the cotton is coming up. Remember back in there, I'm looking at Janice, because she's from Montgomery, and she know what I'm talking about. And the cotton is coming up. It's not high, but it's you know. And I never forget Joan Baez, Judy Collins. They were in the car, and they said, "Oh, isn't that beautiful? Look like clouds are lying on the ground." And I said right there, no, they got to go. They have got to go. Because when you look at cotton, from May to August, it's chopping time. Out there in the hot sun, chopping those weeds. When you look at it in October, our kids are not in school because they got to be out there picking the cotton.
It's the difference of perspective.
No question, and values. And in the spring and March, our children are not in school because they got to plant the cotton. So I saw drudgery. And we're not having these white folks coming in here with this romanticism. You know, no way. So SNCC had to accept that. Because we were the forces. Alabama State students and Tuskegee, mainly Tuskegee students, because we had a little bit more freedom given, you know, the nature of our schools. And then we had a big sit-in at Tuskegee saying that the key word at that time, your education had to be relevant. Why am I studying pathology if I cannot do anything about the well water in Little Texas, Macon County? Okay? You know, if it didn't uplift the community, it was not worth learning. And the word uplift came from people like Della, Mrs. Bryant, back in the 40s and the 50s with the NAA, because that was our key word, uplift. The women's organization, lifting as we, you know, as we climb. I belonged in a youth group, a child's group called the Inkster Uplift Club. That was one of our key words. And also dignity, first class citizenship, you know, human rights. You know, civil rights didn't even come in our minds. It was human rights. We fight for our dignity. And all of that got, you know, co-opted. So anyway, SNCC accepted the position. No whites could come. And Lowndes County was fertile. And you have to understand the history of Lowndes County. Lowndes County has always been militant. You have different factions, of course, but you had a real militant faction historically in Lowndes County. They have always carried guns. Always. A certain section. How else did they eat? That's how they got the meat. Squirrels, it wasn't romanticized. It was a necessity. They go hunt deer, you know. But mainly it was rabbits, you know, the rabbit meat. And possum, you know, and some squirrel too. And, but also they had a history back during the day, doing the sharecropping and tenant farming, that if the overseer, who was white, rode through the plantation, now I'm not talking about slavery time now, I'm talking about the 30s and the 40s, and if the overseer rode through sharecropping, rode through the plantation with a long gun, you can bet your bottom dollar the next day you're going to have 5 or 6 brothers and sisters with some shotguns in the bed. We have to understand, I tried to explain to these white SNCC kids, and I'm still explaining, that in Birmingham, we had a union. The CIO was a bloody fight. Hosea Hudson and all. Militant. You had your coal miners strike. Back in the 1912s, black and white folks working together. Throwdown, I mean, with the guns and everything else. They dealt with the Keystone Cops until racism made a wedge and broke up the black and white coal miners. who were really united for the union. They were fighting for the United Mine Workers. So the political history, the political economy of Alabama is different than Mississippi. Mobile, they fought like a dog for the longshoremen. So there was a different consciousness of black Alabamians. We also had, in terms of, I'm talking to SNCC folks now, we weren't not a single crop state. All Mississippi had was cotton. Well, we had cotton, we had coal, we had steel, we had the waterfront. It's not that one was better than the other, they're just different. And we knew better organizing strategy than all the white folks they want to try to, and we didn't have time to raise them because we were getting folks registered to vote. We had just gotten the 65 Voting Rights Act. We're going to register everybody we can. So we did. And as we did that in Lowndes County, organized our own independent political party, which was the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, had a lot of discussion about what should be the mascot. Some black folks wanted to be the buzzard, eat up the white rooster. So we had to deal with that. No, the mascot represents you. You know, it is a symbol of you. We don't want to eat up anybody. And we just want to participate in the political process. So they came up with the Panther. Jennifer Lawson drew it. And the Panther was not sensational because in World War II you had a Panther squadron. If you go to black folks' houses, even to this day, you had a ceramic, long Black Panther sitting on the mantel or as a doorstop. You know, there's nothing sensational about it. And Bobby Kennedy, who was the U.S. Attorney General, came to Alabama to talk to these wild snake kids and these militant folks in Lowndes County to ask us to fold into the state Democratic Party to elect Richmond Flowers for governor. He had been lieutenant governor. And we said we were not going to join a party with the white rooster, white for the right for the white, or whatever the little banner read.
The logo for the state Democratic Party at one point had a white rooster. Okay, for the state Alabama Democratic Party, the mascot or logo symbol for Alabama Democratic Party was a white rooster, and underneath the white rooster was white supremacy for all, or something to that effect, was the actual saying that was written, the slogan that was written under this white rooster. So that is what she's referring to when she says, you know, they're not going to be a part of this party with this racist logo and racist slogan.
And I'm going to try to rush this up. I'm telling you, you're going to talk real.
I'm enjoying it.
So, U.S. Attorney Bobby Kennedy comes down. He wants us to fold into the state Democratic Party. We refuse. Meanwhile, Eldridge Cleaver had come. Y'all know about the Eldridge Cleaver? Just no, he ain't no Black Panther yet.
That's true.
And he's a writer for Ramparts magazine, which is a popular magazine, progressive magazine in California. And he had just been released from prison. We did not like him. He wrote a book called Soul on Ice. I wrote a critique called Souls on Fire. Because he raped black women for practice, so he could rape white women better. And everybody knew that. That's really much a challenge, a rapist. And we fought hard for Kathleen not to marry him. She's from Tuskegee. But anyway, he came and he was just shocked to see these black people with long guns. And the few of us who had, because we rode mules when we organized, some of us did. If you look at a photo of Bob Nance, he's on a mule. And how that story came about, when the SNCC organizers, along with Tuskegee students, organized, because we had worked out with Tuskegee that Lowndes County, Greene County, Wilcox, those were to be our laboratories. That's where we were going to do our internship. You were in political science, and you had to do your practicum was in the black belt, because we're talking about voting rights. If you were in biology, then your practicum was in the rural, look at the water. I mean, we had worked that thing out. We had a big 3-day strike at Tuskegee. We had the first strike before birth, the moratorium. We just stopped school. We got to redo this curriculum here. And that's how we were able to go over there, and we got credit. Because we told our teachers that we needed credit, and you know, because it was like practical. It was internship. And I'm gonna get to Fred Gray too on this. So when Eldridge came down and saw all these black folks, not all, but some black folks with these long guns, leaning up on this rickety porch, he went berserk. He was ecstatic, you know, because he had a stereotype of what black folks ought to be about in the South, dumb and stupid. And we had a saying, never underestimate the intelligence of the people. Let the people speak. We had meetings that would last for 2 to 3 days non-stop. We wait for the fall asleep, we wake up and you write on point. And you develop some incredible leaders here. There's more, I can just name a lot of them. And we went on and had our election, and we lost. Afterwards, Fred Gray, give me the other Tuskegee guy, Thomas Reed, were first elected on an independent party ticket. First time elected. When Eldridge went back and carried some long guns at the state capitol in Sacramento and shouted Black Power, by this time we had John Cashin from Huntsville. Yeah, that's right. Who had transformed the Black Panther, because it was just in Lowndes County, the Lowndes County Free, to a statewide level. As an independent party, later on he wanted to be voted in, but an independent party initially got on the ballot, and we changed the mascot to the eagle and told Robert Kennedy, now you go and make that go crazy. The thought process that goes into a collective mind who really understands struggle. And we also were not interested, at least in Lowndes County, for any kind of statewide position or district position. We were interested in the sheriff, because they would kill our folks at random, at will. We were interested in the coroner, where they would say died of natural causes instead of saying died of racism or racist behavior. We wanted a tax assessor, because we did have property owners, and they would assess our property dishonestly. They would tax our property very high. So we'd lose it, could pay the taxes, then they could buy it. So we wanted a fair tax assessor, and then we wanted a fair tax collector, because they would collect from the black farmers, but wouldn't collect from the whites. We wanted those positions that were close to the people. And of course, the school board, with as well as I know Shel Gracie, Ms. Shirley Hayes, for our children. Those we were not interested in being mayor or U.S. representatives. or state, but we were those positions closest to the ground that had a day-to-day impact on the lives and the quality of the lives of our local people. So basically, I'm going to end with that. And then as we got larger, we elected all of our initial black elected officials were elected on an independent political party. Utah, we call that the liberated zone. We elected Sheriff Gilmore, who never carried a gun. The sheriff who never carried a gun. You know, we did elect Lucius Amerson from Tuskegee within the Democratic Party. And he was the first black sheriff elected since Reconstruction. In fact, I think he was the first black sheriff elected, period. You know, we don't need to limit it. And we elected him under the Democratic Party, but Tuskegee was a la-di-da community. And they couldn't tell too many, all them highfalutin Negroes up there at the Institute and at the VA that they couldn't register to vote. And besides, we were parading as a model city. So they had to figure out how to make that a reality, even though it was not true. So we had enough votes, and the struggle against Amerson